Welcome to the TOEFL Listening section. In this part, you will hear one or more conversations in an academic or campus context, such as a discussion between a student and a professor, or between two students. You may take notes while listening. Listen to part of a conversation. You will hear it only once, so listen carefully. After the conversation, you will answer questions about what you heard. Some questions will ask you about main ideas and details. Others will ask about implied meaning, speaker attitude, or how ideas relate to one another. Use both what is stated and what is implied to answer.
Good afternoon, Professor Martin. Thank you for meeting with me during office hours.
Good afternoon, Jason. Please sit. How is your literature review going for the Communication Studies paper on nonverbal communication across cultures?
It is coming together, but I have questions about organizing examples. I want to make sure I focus on the right categories, like gestures and personal space.
That is a good start. In our field, we often use technical categories, such as Kinesics for body movements, Proxemics for personal space, haptics for touch, and Oculesics for eye behavior.
Could you explain Proxemics again and give a clear cross-cultural example I can cite?
Proxemics examines how different cultures structure interpersonal distance. For example, in many Latin American cultures, people prefer closer personal distances when talking, often standing within 1 meter, whereas in Northern European countries, people commonly keep a larger buffer of about 1.5 to 2 meters.
So if a student from Brazil stands much closer in a seminar, a Danish student might feel uncomfortable or even interpret it as intrusive?
Exactly. Proxemic expectations are culturally learned. Misreading those expectations can be interpreted as rudeness, aggression, or conversely as coldness, depending on the observer.
You mentioned Oculesics earlier. I have seen conflicting advice about eye contact. Some texts say prolonged eye contact is respectful, others say it is rude.
Eye contact is highly culture dependent. In the United States, direct eye contact often signals honesty and engagement. In Japan or some East Asian contexts, prolonged direct gaze can be seen as challenging or disrespectful, especially with elders.
Would that mean that avoiding eye contact is always a sign of deception in some classes?
No. A lack of eye contact is not a universal indicator of deception. It can reflect politeness, deference, or a different cultural norm about respect. That is why we caution against ethnocentric interpretations in cross-cultural communication.
I am also interested in gestures. I once learned that the thumbs-up gesture is positive here, but can be offensive in other places.
Yes, emblems are gestures with direct verbal translations in a culture. Thumbs up is an emblem, meaning approval in North America, but in parts of the Middle East, it can be an obscene insult. Another example is the head nod. In Bulgaria and some South Asian contexts, a sideways head bobble can mean agreement, which confuses visitors.
What about facial expressions like smiling? Are they universal in meaning?
Facial expressions have both universal and culturally specific aspects. Basic emotions like happiness are expressed with certain shared muscle movements, but display rules govern when and how intensely people display those emotions. For instance, in some cultures, a smile may be used as a polite regulator in social interactions, even when the person does not feel joyful.
Could you give a concrete classroom example of display rules affecting interpretation?
Certainly. Imagine a student from a culture where maintaining group harmony is prioritized. That student may smile and nod during a discussion to show agreement or polite attention, even if they privately disagree. Conversely, a student from a culture that values directness might frown or voice criticism. If instructors interpret the smiling student as agreement, they may miss the actual dissent.
That links to power distance too, right? In high power distance cultures, students might avoid direct disagreement with professors.
Yes. Proxemics, Oculesics, and display rules interact with cultural dimensions like power distance and high context versus low context communication. In high context cultures, nonverbal cues carry much of the meaning, so subtle gestures and tone can be more important than explicit statements.
Are there research methods you recommend for studying these nonverbal differences in a cross-cultural project?
Mixed methods are useful. Ethnographic observation and video analysis capture kinesics and interaction patterns. Surveys can assess perceived meanings of specific emblems. Experimental tasks, like simulated conversations, help isolate variables, but you must always include cultural insiders in coding to avoid biased interpretations.
I plan to include a short observational study comparing first-day interactions between classmates from 3 cultural backgrounds. Any pitfalls I should avoid?
Avoid imposing your own interpretive categories. For instance, do not label someone as shy solely because they avoid eye contact. Instead, code behaviors descriptively. Then consult participants about intent and meaning. Also consider situational factors like classroom norms and gender interactions.
Speaking of gender, how does haptics differ across cultures regarding touch between men and women?
Haptics vary widely. In some Mediterranean and Latin cultures, casual touch between friends of the same or opposite sex is common. In more conservative societies, touch between unrelated men and women may be restricted. Interpreting touch without cultural context can lead to misunderstanding or offense.
I want to include at least 3 short case studies. Do you think examples like the thumbs up, the head bobble, and personal space across Latin America and Northern Europe are strong?
Those are very clear and teachable examples. They illustrate emblems, regulators, and proxemic differences. Be sure to link each to theory such as display rules and high versus low context communication, and discuss implications for things like international teamwork and classroom instruction.
One last question. You mentioned smiling being used politeness. You said something about the eyes and the mouth that I want to quote accurately.
Yes, when a smile involves only the mouth and not the eyes, it may be a polite smile rather than a sign of genuine warmth.
Great. I will include that quote and the other examples. Thank you for the guidance. I feel more confident about structuring the paper.
You are welcome. Send me your outline next week and we can refine your case studies and methods section.
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Yes. When a smile involves only the mouth and not the eyes, it may be a polite smile rather than a sign of genuine warmth.
This concludes the conversation portion. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.